Forged among stars.
We're back, and we're going to begin a new session. So we get to take one momentum, so we are full on momentum, which is great. And then we have to roll this oracle just to see what happens. Seemingly unrelated situations are shown to be connected. That's interesting. I will make a note of that. Okay, we left Hawking Duval as he and Hellhound were about to start a heist. Now, how I'm imagining the scene is that Hawking and Hellhound and Dancer and Scout were all on board the Shard of the Sun. We have had some complications introduced. Ogre has demanded they leave, so they only have a day or two to leave the station. Also, while they were trying to gather information and secure an advantage on this heist, I rolled some of the worst rolls possible. So they were not able to gather a lot of information. They were not able to secure an advantage. And we have all kinds of complications based on those rolls. As long as I can remember, they will be introduced as we move along here. Now, this game isn't really set up to run a heist. I'm going to have to use some moves a little loosely, and I'll be imagining a lot of this fiction because I won't have a lot of tables to roll on. Or if I do, I will just try to get a few ideas here and there. So let me close this. Let's go up to progress. So I have set a progress bar at formidable to steal the brain in the jar. The only move that makes sense is undertake expedition. And I'm thinking that's the case because if they had been able to secure an advantage or gather information, I think I would have allowed myself to use the set course move. So Hawking and Hellhound would have just known where to go. But I think they're even struggling on where to go. And so we're going to use undertake expedition. And really, I'm going to see if this works. So the whole idea is that they're going to sneak out of the Shard of the Sun, and they are going to slip into some maintenance corridors or maintenance tubes that lead off of the landing bay and that wind all through the space station of Lodestar. And that will hopefully bring them to the place where the brain in the jar is being held. I know you might think, oh, well, this is all cliche about using air shafts and maintenance hallways, and there would be cameras everywhere. I mean, that is probably true. There would be cameras everywhere. There probably would not be air shafts or maintenance corridors that lead right to a secure lab or holding area wherever they're keeping the brain in the jar. It is pretty cliche. I admit that. But if Hollywood screenwriters and movie directors can be paid millions of dollars to use cliches, I can be paid nothing to use cliches. All right. And besides, the cliche is fun. Who hasn't wanted to crawl through an air vent? Because we've seen it in so many movies and TV shows. I mean, I have. And so role-playing games allow us to be in our own movies in a certain sense, or books if you're more of a reader. And I love that about role-playing games because we can actually play the cliche and we can get in and do some of this stuff that we've seen our heroes do. So that is how I'm going to imagine Hawking's and Hellhound's adventure. So we're going to roll undertake expedition, but first, as always, I need to check all my assets. So Monarch cannot help me. Diplomat doesn't help me steal an object. Lore Hunter may actually help me if I were to swear an iron vow, because the brain in the jar is ancient knowledge. I mean, by actual definition, it's ancient, and if it's still alive, it would possess ancient knowledge. So that is an interesting thought. I hadn't really thought about that. Should he swear an iron vow to steal the brain in a jar? We may do that. Let me keep looking here. Veteran doesn't help me right now. Looper will only help me if I need a stress move. Vanguard is something totally else. Explorer may help me if we explore waypoints along the way. That'll give me some pluses to momentum and maybe some discoveries if I get a strong hit when we conclude. Seer, I have rolled a prophecy, and it was construct, community, captured, salvage. And I don't know how that helps me here, but I will keep looking for a way to use that in this heist because it'll give Hawking an automatic strong hit depending on what he's doing at the time, and if I can make it fit into the fiction. I may not be able to, and we may have to face this without prophetic visions. So let's look at Lore Hunter really quickly again. When I swear an iron vow, formidable or greater, to recover valuable knowledge or an extraordinary relic, re-roll any dice. When you reach a milestone, take +2 momentum. When you fulfill your vow and score a hit, also mark 2 ticks on your Discovery's legacy track. Actually, I think that fits really well for this situation. Now, this is something that I've always been confused about the game, is I'll have an iron vow and a expedition bar, I guess. But I think I'm going to do that. I think I am going to have Hawking swear an iron vow to recover this brain in the jar. So let's come over here. We already have find out the true nature of the brain in the jar, but he can't do that until he has it. So let's swear this. Recover the brain in the jar from Lodestar. And we'll make it formidable because we done messed up. So let's come back over here. We'll swear an iron vow. So we're just going to roll this. We don't get any pluses, but I can re-roll any dice. A weak hit. Okay. I am going to re-roll that 10 on one of the challenge dice. And we'll see if we can get a strong hit. A 6. Yeah. That'll turn it into a strong hit. So that is great. All right. We got a strong hit. So we could take +2 momentum, but we are full already. And I'm going to double check the asset. Whenever we reach a milestone on this vow, we can take +2 momentum. So that will be very helpful. So we are going to have 2 bars to track. We are going to have the vow and the progress bar. So now we're going to come over here and we're going to roll Undertake Expedition. And we are trying to keep under the radar. So Hawking has to roll with Shadow, which is not good. So let's see how this goes. This may fail like instantly, or it may be like one of the most bumbling heists ever. I don't know what happens if they get caught or whatever. We'll have to figure this out. So Shadow, I don't think I get any pluses. Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. So I got a weak hit, but I could burn momentum. So let's see what a weak hit says. Yeah, a weak hit is right off, taking either -2 or -1 on suffer moves or facing a peril at a waypoint. I am going to burn the momentum. So I will reset it to 2. We'll take a strong hit. So we will mark progress. I think that means we mark some progress down here as well. Then I'll check my assets. When you reach a milestone, you take +2 momentum. So we'll move it back up to 4. And I could have saved this momentum. I know I'm going to need it for more pressing matters, but I didn't want to start off the first move getting broken. Here is how I imagine what happens. So Hawking and Hellhound, when it is simulated night in the landing bay, they slip off the shard of the sun and they're able to quickly move behind some crates and barrels, you know, like in TNG with those octagon barrels or whatever, that are crates that they have. There's some of those in there. Probably also some Tucker tubes or whatever those things are. They are able to hide behind those quickly. Then they can slip into a maintenance tube and they start crawling their way through this maintenance tube. And when they get to the end of the maintenance tube, it drops down into a small work area where some maintenance crew would have to go on occasion to work on some of the station's equipment. Now, here is the question. Should I explore waypoints on this heist? And I think I should, so I can understand what some of these areas are like a little bit better. But it says divert from an expedition. Obviously, this adds more and more time, and they are on a time crunch. So let's go over here though real quick, and I can do something like this. I had been thinking about, say, like using the engineering under the derelict table to see if I could get a feature. So there's a control terminal in this little maintenance vestibule, and I'm going to say there are tubes that run off in various directions on either side. I don't think they're going to explore this waypoint. I will use this, but I think it's too soon. So Hawking and Hellhound are dressed in their black clothes, and they have some tools and some rope. Everything's tight-fitting. They have masks on, and they are going to press on through some of these maintenance tubes and access corridors to see if they can steal the brain in the jar. They are still moving with shadow, I believe, to stay under the radar. Now, this may be worse because I don't have a lot of momentum to burn, so we will see what happens. No pluses. A weak hit. Okay, I can handle that. So now we do mark progress. So let me come over here and do that. I think we are going to mark along the vow as well. That will get us to be able to build back up some momentum. We'll go back over here, and we have to make some suffer moves. If I need to roll on a suffer move, Looper here will help me. I'm going to go over to the moves, and we're going to take a look at the suffer moves. Lose momentum, endure harm, stress, sacrifice resources. I don't think we have to roll, really, yet. We're told to -2, or we could do 1 from 1. Endure stress. Let's see. Yeah, you only have to roll if you're at 0. I believe that's how the rules are. So if I'm doing this wrong, please let me know in the comments, and I will take that into consideration. So what I'm going to say is that Hawking loses 1 spirit, and he loses 1 health. And so how I am going to flavor this is that after they made it into the one small little vestibule, is that a fancy word? And there's all these tubes going off, all these maintenance tubes going off of it. They pick one, but it is extremely hot in this maintenance tube, and it impacts Hawking's spirit and his health because it is so hot in this tube that he actually takes a bit of heat damage. You know, he's not like burned, but he's getting overheated, so he is slowing, and it hurts his health. And it also hurts his spirit because I think he knows that this is a dangerous, risky proposition, especially since they weren't able to get a lot of information on how to steal the jar, since they just were not able to plan this little heist as well as he would have liked it. So that's what happens. I'm going to say they come out into another one of those little areas. I'm going to come over here to the Oracle. Again, like I said, I'm just using the engineer from the derelict just to see what kind of feature there would be. A cluttered workbench. Okay, so that makes sense. And that's why I picked this table. So they come down into this little vestibule area, this small work zone where there are tubes leading off from various sides. And there is a cluttered workbench. Hawking and Hellhound see this cluttered workbench. I think I marked progress, but let me check. Yes, I did. All right, so we're going to go back to undertake an expedition, because again, I think they kind of need to be moving right now. We'll explore a waypoint in a bit when we see something that may seem interesting. So here we go. They're still moving under the radar. They're trying to move quickly and quietly. No pluses. Woo! A miss. But if I burn the momentum, we get a strong hit. Well, that's a no-brainer. I'm going to do that one right now. So I burn that momentum, it resets to 2, and we get a strong hit. So we'll come back over here. We'll mark progress on the vow. And so what happens is they crawl through another access tube, or not an access tube, but a maintenance tube. They crawl through that, and they come out into another one of these maintenance rooms, and I'll go ahead and get a feature again. An unfinished project. So this is nothing revolutionary. I'll imagine there's a desk and somebody was working on a device and there are just some parts there next to it. They were working on some kind of manifold or something, and they were repairing it or building it, and it's just sitting there on a desk. And now I'm imagining the station Lodestar is beautiful, as I have reinforced over and over again, because that was a random roll that I had rolled all the way back in session 1. But these maintenance tubes, what I'm imagining is they're cramped. They have cables and wires just running everywhere. These small rooms are just barely big enough for, 3 or 4 people could stand in them. So they're still pretty small. So Hawking and Hellhound are in cramped quarters. The heat in the one tube has made them drenched in sweat and has caused them to feel lightheaded and a little less acute than they need to be right now. All right. Since we marked progress, I'll take the 2 momentum from the Iron Vow, and we're just going to press on again. I'm imagining this stage of the heist just to be a simple, let's get somewhere important stage. And when they get somewhere else, I will start imagining different rooms and different access points to vary this up a bit, because I don't want it to be too repetitive. I think they have to make their way into the station a little bit more. And then hopefully I will have some ideas on how to make this a little bit more varied and imaginative by that point. So we're just going to go ahead and roll again. We have to make a suffer move -2 or 2 at -1. Or I could face a peril at the waypoint. And sometimes we can get out a little bit better facing a peril, because I could call on Monarch or use another ability. But I don't think I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to just lower health and spirit again. So as they're crawling through these maintenance corridors, Hawking's mental state and his spirit, he's just taken some hits because it seems like it's going on forever and they're not making a lot of progress. Now, I know I haven't mentioned it. I think I forgot to. Dancer is on the comms and she is trying to lead them different places. I just don't want to have to play all of those interactions out. So we should be imagining that Dancer calls to them occasionally and tells them to go here and go there. And this is just taking a long time, and Hawking's spirit is taking a big hit. His health as well, because what I think is happening now is that crawling through these tubes, that he is getting bumps and bruises, and he's hitting his knees and possibly his head on low-hanging equipment or nodules or certain valves. Let me check progress again. We're almost halfway there. We're almost halfway on the vow. However, I'm going to have to slow down fulfilling these marks on the vow, because escaping is going to be a whole nother deal. whereas the progress up here is getting accomplished each time we move to a new stage within the spaceport. Hopefully that makes sense. Whew, we got a strong hit there just on a straight roll, which was great for another Undertake expedition. So we get to mark progress. We got about half of that fulfilled here. The vow, yeah, I'm going to say that no. I'm going to mark one more, but I'm going to stop marking progress there. So I'll take the 2 momentum. I'm actually going to stop marking progress on the vow because to steal the jar means Hawking will probably be off of Lodestar Station. So if he's not off the station, then that would be pretty tough. All right, so let's see. We're going to undertake expedition again. I did kind of forget to do something, though. Let's get a feature, descriptor, and a focus. Okay, so here we go. Let's look up here at a descriptor and a focus, and we'll see what this is. Colossal force. What I imagine here is that Hawking and Hellhound crawl through another maintenance tube, and instead of coming out into a smaller room, they come out into a rather large one that has a large circular device on the floor and then another one on the ceiling. And in between those 2 circular devices is a powerful energy beam or force of some kind. And Hawking is like, Hellhound, what's that? And Hellhound says, main power conduit, don't touch it. And Hawking replies, I had no intention. They are then able to just maneuver around this colossal force energy beam, and they are going to move again. So did I mark progress? Or no, I just forgot, right? Because I've already did the strong hit. I just forgot that. Okay, so we're going to do it again and see what happens. I didn't mark progress on the vow, did I? No. Oh gosh, I already forgot, guys, if I forgot to mark progress or not. Okay, weak hit. And yep, momentum will not save us. So this time, I am not going to do those suffer moves. I am going to imagine a peril at a waypoint. Because if I keep just doing these suffer moves, just -2, you don't even roll. Hawking's going to be at 0 health and 0 spirit or 0 supply pretty shortly. And a peril, while they could do more damage to Hawking, he still might have a fighting chance. So let's see. Let's figure out a peril. Let's come up here. We'll do like we have been. Let's get a feature of this room. Disassembled equipment. Actually, I liked the descriptor and focus. Let's see. Pillaged outpost. Ooh, okay. Let's see what a peril in an engineering room is. Shrouded atmosphere. Conceals lurking foe. Okay, let's see. How in the world will I interpret this? Pillaged, disassembled equipment, outpost. That doesn't make any sense. Shrouded atmosphere conceals lurking foe. Let's get a couple more. Let's get action and theme. Perverse. Advantage perverse. Oh dear. What's going on in these maintenance tubes, guys? Dear goodness. It's not that kind of podcast, all right? Get your mind out of the gutter, Chad. Okay, so let's see. Okay, I have thought about it, and I have a scene. So Hawking and Hellhound crawl through another one of the maintenance tubes, and they crawl out of it down into another room. Now, this room is a little different. This room is larger. I'm imagining a curved shape to the room, but there are pipes just everywhere along the inside wall, just pipes and assemblies and manifolds and valves and faucets all along this area. There are other tubes and other doors and things that lead off, but that's the main look of the place. However, some of the equipment has been dismantled. There are a few pipes that are shooting out steam, and the fog of the steam has lowered the visibility in the room. So Hawking and Hellhound come down into the room. Their visibility is low. The steam is blowing. They get some instructions from Dancer, and they're moving forward to reach another maintenance corridor, and they're having to walk through the steam. And as they do, suddenly before them is an individual who is pillaging equipment and stealing parts. And this individual turns around and sees them and is not happy. And this individual raises a wrench, like a large, big monkey wrench. And he is going to try to kill Hawking Duval and Hellhound, even though he doesn't know who they are. So we'll come back here. We'll come to moves. We will do battle. Again, this is a quick fight. I'd like to say it was Hawking's courage, and that would give him some extra bonuses, but it is not. I think this is just in close quarters and Hawking needs to overpower his foe. So that is iron. So I will roll iron, but Hawking Duval can do something. And in his mind, in that just instant of danger, as it appears before him, Hawking Duval cries out, "Monarch, help me!" And Monarch, in his always calm voice, just says, "I'm with you, Hawking." And so we are going to roll using iron. We get a +3 because of Monarch. And here we go. A strong hit. Very nice. Ooh, I do have to check. No, I got a 6 on the action die. I have to keep checking because if I roll a 1 on the action die when I use Monarch, our connection is broken for hours. So a strong hit, you achieve your objective unconditionally. Oh, did I mark progress? I did not mark progress. I'm going to forget about that. Okay. I'm not going to mark progress, though, like I said, on the vow, because we got halfway on the vow, and I think the other half should be marked as we're trying to get away, if we do. So what happens in this fight is that the individual rose up with a monkey wrench, and it is a man, I'm going to say. He started to swing his large monkey wrench at Hawking Duval, but Hawking Duval was too quick for him, and I'm going to say that Hawking ducks. The monkey wrench swings over Hawking's head, and then Hawking is able to sidestep and get into a position, and with a brutal but precise strike, Hawking Duval punches the individual right on the jaw, and the person collapses unconscious on the floor. Hellhound and Hawking look all around as the monkey wrench clangs to the floor and this person collapses to the floor. And they don't know if there are other people there or not, but now it becomes clear that this was the only person there. They don't understand exactly what was happening. And Hawking looks around at the scene of this dismantled equipment, and the scene just looks like this person was pillaging the equipment for parts. And Hawking looks to Hellhound and says, "Even Lodestar has some thieves?" And she shrugs, "I don't know. Every place has thieves, right?" And Hawking then says to Hellhound, "Let's tie him up." So they tie him up and they gag him and they move him maybe back amid some of the pipes. And Hellhound is like, "We're just going to leave him?" Hawking's like, "I don't know what else to do. These are maintenance corridors. Somebody's bound to come through in hours. We have to move." Okay, so we're going to go back to undertake expedition. I'm going to check my progress. We are getting there. Now, 7 is usually a good place to roll. If I get another box, that's usually a good place to roll to conclude. But I think Hawking has to face a couple other things. I got some descriptors and themes in last session, and I'm going to try to work those in. So we're going to roll undertake expedition again, and we'll try to conclude this. But this is just, actually, I know I'm kind of confused myself. This is just to get to the place where the brain in jar. It is not to get out. So I got to keep that in mind. So I'm going to roll again and try to at least get 7 on this bar. They're going to move with shadow again. No pluses. A weak hit. And momentum will not save us. Dang it. All right, well, we do get progress. And then we need another peril because I don't want to do the 2 suffer moves just yet and have Hawking almost dead. All right, so let's come over here. Let's do like we have been. Let's go here. Let's get a feature. Flickering status monitors. Oh, I really like that. I like that look in science fiction movies and TV shows. And especially because the technology here is retro. So I imagine those green displays like the old ones in the original Battlestar Galactica or Alien, the original Alien movie. Those monitors that just have like the green text on them. I always thought those were super cool. But we're also going to roll on peril and see if we get something interesting. Erratic utility bots. Okay, that makes sense. Let's get a descriptor and a focus and we'll see. Contested debris, command authority. Okay, those don't make too much sense. But erratic utility bots, contested debris makes a lot of sense and it gives me an idea. Some of these things are really nice. Like they have a lot of themes in here, but some of these are a little much. I was looking at them before the session. So I haven't really been using these, although I could just click on mechanical here and it does give a feature and a peril. So I could see machine fabrication or repair. Like I don't know what to do with that one, but I could roll here on the peril again. Environment made unsuitable for life. See, it's just it's a little much, but maybe I'll work in these tables hopefully soon. But I'm already going to go with this flickering status monitors, erratic utility bots, contested debris. So what happens is that Hawking and Hellhound exit. I'm going to say it was a maintenance corridor this time, that they were able to go through a door at the last room. And they were able to walk along this maintenance corridor. And I'm imagining a dark tunnel-like corridor with those lights in cages every so often on the ceiling, but not too close together. Just enough to give you just enough light so you don't trip and break your neck. And then all along the sides, I'm imagining wires and cables and some piping, kind of a classic look in a science fiction movie or a science fiction TV show. Kind of eerie as well. So they walk through this corridor and they come out through another door into another maintenance room. And in this room, there are these banks of status monitors and they're flickering. And on the floor in front of them, there are machine parts. Some of them just look like debris, just broken pieces. But there are 2 utility bots that are moving in erratic motions and fighting over the pieces of that debris that is on the floor. And Hawking Duval and Hellhound walk into the room and they see this. And those 2 bots turn and they are malfunctioning and they are going to attack. So let's go back to battle and we're going to roll battle twice. So again, Hawking calls on Monarch and Hawking is going to try to overpower this little maintenance bot. I'm kind of imagining, one could have like a BB-8 look to it, that it's round and it's rolling like that with arms, utility arms up on the top little part, the head that doesn't move or that doesn't roll. And then the other one has a more boxy look to it, but it has treads. So the first one comes close. The rolling one is faster, so it comes up quicker. It's malfunctioning and maybe even spitting sparks. Hawking calls on Monarch. We get a +3. A weak hit. Dang. All right. Well, that's the first one, so we're going to have to pay the price. Dang it. Hawking Duval taken out by a maintenance bot. Make the most obvious outcome happen, or roll here on the table. I'll roll, but I do have an obvious one in mind. You are delayed or put at a disadvantage, which is basically what's happening. But I do have an idea. And what I'm going to say is the bot comes up and it shocks Hawking, and he loses health up here. Let me go back to battle, make sure. Okay, that was the first one. Now the second one moves in. Actually, before that, in fiction, so this bot rolls up and it has these arms and it's crackling and it shocks Hawking, and he is just like, oh, but he tries not to scream because he's trying to be quiet. And so he is able just to spin and kick the bot, and it hits a panel on the wall and it malfunctions even further and it ceases function. Now the second one, a rectangle-ish cube on treads with some grabber arms, is coming towards him again. And so we're going to battle once again. And again, Hawking Duval uses iron and he calls on Monarch. A weak hit again. And what? Momentum will not save us. So this is great. So let's pay the price again. I'll roll on that table again, but I think I do have another obvious. It rolled the same one. We're just delayed. I mean, I could go with that. Let me roll again just to get a new enemy. I've had so many new enemies. It's crazy. Okay, so I'm delayed or put at a disadvantage. So what would be, I mean, the most obvious outcome still is just that he would be hurt in some way. Or I could imagine some way that they were delayed. But I mean, this is delaying them anyway. Let's just go with hurt. All right, Hawking may die trying to steal a brain in a jar. All right, so let's go back here. Did I mark progress? I can't remember. Guys. I think I did. The utility bot rolls over and it swings a little grabber arm, and I'm going to say this one just slices right into Hawking's forearm, and then Hawking is able to reach down next to where its little head stalk maybe connects to its body, and there is a group of wires there, and he just pulls those wires and it is deactivated. And so Hawking and Hellhound are going to move on. I do have 7 bars here. I could try to conclude it so they would reach the place where the jar is being hidden. If I roll one more, though, it would give me a better chance, but I think I am going to try to roll to conclude this. This may be a bad idea, but we're going to. A weak hit. Let's see. So what I just rolled was finish expedition. Okay. On a weak hit, as above, you face an unforeseen complication at your expedition. Make the legacy rank reward 1 rank lower. Envision what you encounter. Dang it. So this was formidable. We were going to get 1 box on our legacy discovery track, but now we only get 2 ticks. No, that took the other one away. So there. So that was 2 ticks. I wanted some more experience points. But anyway, let's focus on the matter at hand. Let's go back to oracles, and I'm going to create a room. I'm going to say that Hawking and Hellhound are still in a maintenance tube or corridor, but they're going to see the lab or the holding area where the brain in the jar is being held. And I think I'm going to come down here to operations, maybe? Or no. We're going to come down here to research because they're researching this creature. So let me roll an area and see what that creature or animal pens. Well, there you go. Oh, I did the wrong thing. Let's come here. Let's see about a feature. Hastily destroy data. Oh, no. We also have a peril, a toxic environment. Oh, dear goodness. Okay. Let me see about another feature. Oh, a descriptor and a focus. Powerful force. Oh, no. And then let's come up here. I don't know. I may try. Oh, well, this says fortified. Let's see what it says. Powerful enemy appear. That's so generic. Come on, guys. Come on. What about a feature? Enemy ladder. Enemy ladder. Enemy leader makes an inspection. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. This has given me a few ideas. Actually, let me roll over here on engineering as well and see engine room or power core. Let me roll again. An area. Come on. Maintenance tube. Okay, well, we're just wasting time. Let me see about a feature. Multi-level layout. Okay, interesting. Let me put all this together. So Hawking and Hellhound, they are in a maintenance tube, which at the end of it has a hatch, but the hatch does have a small window in it, and it is covered with some type of plexiglass or plexi steel, whatever they call it in Starforged. So they can see. So Hawking's crawling. I think Hellhound's behind him, and they've had to crawl through this maintenance corridor. And Hawking sees the hatch, and he looks out of this little window. It is a research lab with creature pens in it, and the brain is kept in one of those pens. However, the room has been flooded with some type of gas that has a greenish hue to it. And Hawking remembers that there was a greenish gas in the cylinder with the brain. And so Hawking looks back to Hellhound and he's like, masks. And so he pulls down his goggles and he pulls a mask and he puts a breather mask on. So that is the toxic environment. But he sees the brain. The room is, I'm imagining, two circles on top of one another. So there is a large circular room and then stairs going down to another level to another room that is a circle, but it's cut off by the one, so it's like a moon shape. And there are the pens down below on that lower area, but Hawking can see it because he can look down. And up here on the top circle, I'm going to say that there are workstations around. Hawking, though, can see, he looks, and on one of the console areas, somebody has destroyed some data cartridges. There are just data cartridges laid out, and they have busted them to pieces. And Hawking doesn't have any idea what is happening in this room, but somebody has destroyed something that was probably vitally important and most likely involved the brain in the jar. Hawking radios Dancer, and they have a little back and forth, and he is about to see if he can open the hatch when the main door inside this lab area opens. It is Vagabond. It's an airlock that's inside the lab. Hawking can see it off to one side, and the airlock opens, and it's Vagabond very clearly, but he has a breather mask and goggles on. And he enters the room and he looks around. He stops briefly and looks at the data cartridges that have been destroyed. And Hawking cannot see his eyes, though, so he can't read how he feels. And then he walks down and he looks at the brain there, and then he turns and he comes back up and he looks at some more consoles, and Hawking is essentially holding his breath, wondering what is going to happen, if he's going to stay here or if he's going to leave. And then Vagabond steps into the airlock and the door closes and he leaves. Okay, so what I'm going to say happens now is Hawking Duval opens the hatch to the maintenance tube, and Hawking and Hellhound slip down into the research lab. And I think this is where I need to explore a waypoint, because they need to find out some information about this place. I believe I get a +1. Let's check that out. Oh, I get 1 extra tick on my discoveries. And like I said, and that gives me a full box. I get 2 more points. Like I said, the only problem with this game is that there's so much to remember. Now, I've probably not done myself any favors by buying like every path I possibly can. But I'm going to take, let's see. Oh, no. I just take +1 momentum if I get a hit on Explore Waypoint. I was thinking I added 1 to the roll, but that is not true. So no modifiers. A strong hit. Choose 1. Mark progress. Well, we just completed this. So we find an opportunity, envision a favorable insight situation, resource, or encounter, then take +2 momentum. I'm going to do the momentum really quick, just so I don't forget. And then, okay, so I get an opportunity. So let's come back over here and let's look at the research opportunities. Helpful research data. Well, there you go. That could work. And then what was I looking at up here? I might be able to find something, maybe mechanical. It's a mechanical insight into the workings or purpose of the machines. It doesn't work. No, it doesn't really work. But I do like that. So, okay, so what I'm going to say is that Hawking and Hellhound come out, and Hawking just passes by those data cartridges, and there is one there that hasn't been destroyed. So he takes that one, and it's going to contain some helpful data about the brain in a jar. And actually, that would be a milestone on the vow to find the true nature of the brain in a jar. Should I mark progress down here too? Because they're in the room. They're in here. Yeah, I think so. Just 1. Okay. But something else is going to happen. So Hawking and Hellhound turn and they walk down the stairs towards the brain in the jar. And I'm going to say Hellhound goes over to it, and she is going to collect it and its cylinder because she is an engineer. Hawking hears a noise just over to his left just a little bit, and it's a quiet noise. Quiet. And he turns and he looks that way. And there's a man standing there, a very tall man with an iron gray beard and a receding hairline, not unlike Hawking's, but this man wears his hair shaggy and long on the sides, even though it has receded far back on his scalp. And he has the air of a ruler or a leader. Even though he would probably be in his 60s, he looks physically powerful and strong. And Hawking stares for a moment and is quite confused. And then he says, "Uncle, how are you here?" And the figure smiles, but it's not a warm, friendly smile. It's a malicious smile. And the figure says, "I'm here to make sure you never reclaim your birthright." And Hawking closes his eyes and he grits his teeth. The rage in him is about ready to boil over. And he lashes out and he says, "You stole what was mine, but that's okay. I have given that birthright up. You can't touch me here. Take it for all I care." And the figure smiles and says, "Oh, no. I cannot allow you any fortune or position." Hawking just becomes so angry. He pulls his sidearm and he points it and he says, "This ends now. I couldn't do it before I left home, but I can now." And he aims his pistol at the figure, this iron gray bearded figure of his uncle with a malicious leer on his face. And he is about ready to pull the trigger when he hears a voice. It is Hellhound's, and she sounds frightened. And she says, Hawking, put down the gun." But Hawking is looking and he still sees his uncle. And then Hawking hears another voice. It's Dancer. And she says, "Hawking, Hellhound, what's going on?" Okay, so if you remember, in the last session, I rolled Illusion Apparition. What Hawking is seeing here is a very elaborate security device. It has projected something very personal regarding the person. And the scene in the room is this. Hellhound had bent down and she had collected the brain in its cylinder and slung it on her back. And when she turned around, Hawking Duval was pointing his gun at her. Now, I think I am going to roll Face Danger because Hawking Duval has to break out of this and it could be dangerous. I think Face Danger might be it. Well, let me check a couple other moves. I know there's probably not a move for this. Can you compel yourself? No. Let's look at Face Danger. I think Face Danger is the best one here. So Hawking Duval is going to face danger and he is going to have to use his wits because he has to use his power of observation to tell that this is an illusion that is being projected in front of him. I know you're going to say, oh, well, how does the technology know about his uncle and all that stuff? I just made all that up on the fly, so I don't know exactly, but somehow the security device picks up something from the person who comes in. And this could be ancient technology. This could be something very unique that Lodestar has stolen from someplace. But this is their security device. It reads some emotions in a person and it projects it back to them. So we're going to roll Face Danger. If Hawking Duval rolls a miss, he may shoot Hellhound. So I am very glad we are full on momentum. So I think I can save myself unless we roll a critical fail, in which case I will be very sad. Here we go. No bonuses. A strong hit. All right, let's go back to the fiction. Hawking Duval is pointing his gun at this figure of his uncle, but he hears these two voices he knows and he recognizes, and his finger is on the trigger, and his uncle has stolen everything he was entitled to ever since he was a little boy. He was raised understanding he was going to claim his birthright, and his uncle stole it from him, and he is about ready to shoot his uncle. But when he hears these two voices of his friends, voices who call him Hawking, the image shivers a little bit, and it breaks up, and it looks like it's not real. And Hawking sees Hellhound with a terrified look on her face. And Hawking lowers the gun. Hellhound! And Hellhound, her hands are up, and she's like, no, actually, Hawking lowers it. And he doesn't use her call sign. He says, Kimura? And Hellhound, Kimura, has her hands up, and she sees him lower, and she just starts to calm down a little bit. Hawking? What was that about? He shakes his head, and he says, something strange in here. We have got to go. And she nods and says, yes, let's get out of here. Hawking Duval holsters his weapon. He notes that Hellhound has the brain in the jar, and they turn and they head towards the maintenance hatch that they entered the room through. Now, they are going to flee, and I think I get to use the set course move because they know a way out now. However, what they don't know is that this security device has triggered an alarm. And so they don't know that, but that's something the audience would know if this were a movie or a TV show. We are going to roll Set a Course. Set a Course rolls against your supply, which I had forgotten about. Whew, thankfully, I did not minus any from supply. So we roll against our supply, although we could get some very terrible things that could happen here. Oh, and I forgot to check on Monarch those couple of times I used Monarch. Where was Battle? Okay. Did I use Monarch since then? No, I can't use Monarch anymore for a few hours. Okay, so I did roll a 1 on the action die. Like I said, there's so much to keep track of. I'm not trying to cheat. It just happens naturally. All right, so we are going to set a course and roll on that. No modifiers, just the plus supply. And we got a strong hit. Nice. We reach our destination and we take 1 momentum. Now, I'm going to come up here to vows. I'm going to mark a milestone on recover the brain in the jar from Lodestar. Our progress bar, we have fulfilled this one, so we don't need a new one. So Hawking and Hellhound open the hatch. They plunge into the maintenance tube and they crawl through the maintenance tube. They enter the rooms that they had come through and they are moving at speed, and they follow the path that they took all the way back to the landing bay. And then they enter the landing bay. They check to see if anything's going on. They don't see anything. They run around stealthily and they enter the shard of the sun, and they are greeted by Dancer and Scout. And everybody's all excited and happy that they're back. And Hawking shuts it down. And he says, "There is no time for this. Kimura." And Hellhound looks. He called her by her name. She looks at him. "Yes, Hawking." And he says, "I need you down by the engines. Go." And she's like, "Roger that." She runs down to the engine room of the Shard of the Sun. Dancer and Scout to the cockpit. So they rush to the cockpit. Hawking Duval sits down. He starts flipping switches. Dancer and Scout on weapons. And so they both sit down, and Scout's kind of like, "Ooh, weapons?" Like she doesn't even really know how these work, but she's obeying. So Dancer and Scout sit down at these other workstations in the cockpit. Hawking straps in and he starts working the controls and the foot pedals, and the engines fire. He radios down to Hellhound in the engine room. He radios down to her and he just tells her to be ready to go, and she responds and says that the engines will be ready. And then Hawking Duval hits his comm and he says, "Shard of the Sun," to Lodestar Control. "We'll be leaving now. Open the bay doors." And we are going to roll on an oracle, and we are going to see if the control opens the doors or not on the bay. And I'm going to say that it is 50-50. So 1 through 50, the control does not open the doors because they are receiving an alarm. 51 to 100, they do open the doors because their security hasn't pieced together exactly what has happened yet. So I'm just going to roll a percentile roll right here. Okay, so Hawking radios in. He gets a response. "This is Lodestar Control. Shard of the Sun, you're clear." And Hawking looks over his shoulder. Dancer gives him a look, and he has kind of a thinned lip smile, and the bay doors start to open. He radios down to Hellhound to make sure they have engines at full power, and he lifts the Shard of the Sun off and flies it out the bay doors. And then we need to make some moves. Or well, maybe not some moves just yet. We're going to do some fiction, I think. We have to do some milestones. So I'm going to mark this to 8, and then I'm going to roll to fulfill the recover the brain in the jar from Lodestar, because they have just made it out of the space station. So I'm going to fulfill this vow. A weak hit. Dang it. What is that mean? You were determined, but more questions, 1 momentum. Oh, okay. So that's not bad. Well, we're full on momentum, and we have more questions. So, of course, we have more questions because it's a brain in a jar. So I'm going to... Oh, I need to look at assets. Lore Hunter. I get 2 ticks on my legacy discovery. That is right. 2. So I get 2 ticks there. I'm going to clear this vow. There is that one. So there is that. Then what I am going to say happens is this. They make it out of the station, and Hawking pilots the vessel and maneuvers it away from the station. and he is putting as much distance as possible between him and Lodestar as fast as he can. And then, all of a sudden, over the radio comes, "Lodestar Station to Shard of the Sun. Please return to landing bay immediately." And Hawking, he takes a deep breath, glances over at Dancer. She looks at him worried. Scout looks around as well. He looks at her, and then another time on the comm, "Lodestar Station to Shard of the Sun. Return immediately to the station." Then Hawking flips a monitor to like a rear view of the Shard of the Sun, and so he can see Lodestar Station in the background, dwindling as they are leaving it. And he notices one of the warships starts moving. And he does not respond to Lodestar Station, but he does hit the internal comm. And he says, "Kimura, hit the E drive." And she replies, "Here we go." And the Shard of the Sun skips across realities like a stone on a pond. And everyone on the bridge shares a knowing glance that they just managed to get away with it. Hellhound comes up to the bridge and joins them here in the cockpit bridge command area. And Hawking turns his seat around so he is looking at his crew members. Hellhound says, "Where exactly are we going?" And Hawking says, "I wanted to go back to Keladon, but that's too close to Lodestar. We're going to go to Larissa and negotiate some mining contracts." And Dancer says, "Larissa? Why would you ever want to go there?" And Hawking looks at her and says, "Is there something I should know?" And we'll end session. We're full on momentum, so the +1 momentum, so that doesn't apply. I will check vows really quick. Background vow, maybe 1 tick because we have some ancient knowledge in our hand. Find out the true nature of the brain in the jar. I will mark there. Learn the precursor language. We've just barely started that. So those are the only vows that I will mark progress on. I thank you so much for listening to these actual plays because this is our season finale. This is the end of season 2. I hope you enjoyed this season and stay tuned for season 3 of Forged Among Stars.
Thank you for listening to Forged Among Stars.